Hi, I'm Shelby from Sponge, and today I'm going to talk to you about UTMs, why you should be using them as the foundation for your attribution reporting, and more importantly, how to actually use them consistently and correctly. So, what's a UTM? An UTM is an urchin tracking module. Almost nobody uses the real name, and most marketers are kind of familiar with the acronym, but they honestly can't tell you why UTMs matter. Sometimes they're called parameters. A normal URL without any UTMs is something we're all really familiar with, but the same URL with UTMs added has this whole string of question marks and ampersands and underscores underneath it. Most often you'll see these when you click a link in an email or social post. And the whole function of them is to basically feed Google Analytics data about where the clicks came from so that Google Analytics can have a better sense of where your inbound traffic is being sourced. When you're inside GA, this is universal. It's obviously changed a little for GA4. You can then expose those sources, mediums, and campaigns and see in a really nice view what is being driven by your partners, by your cost per click or PPC, by social organic and social paid, et cetera. So it's a nice way to get a roll up of your channels and how they're actually driving conversions. Then what we can do is basically slice and dice that data. So you can do it by channel or medium. So here I'm able to see how email as a whole is performing versus events, trade shows, et cetera, versus paid. And then inside email, I could go even further and say, okay, well, my HubSpot, annual cost is X and my SalesLoft annual cost is Y. How are these individually contributing to the success of email as a channel? And then maybe most exciting for those of us in demand gen, we can look at a campaign holistically across all channels, all sources, and see how, like writ large, how did the campaign actually perform? And you can get some really interesting insights here about the most beloved topics or things that are just going to be like really popular for you ongoing. UTMs live in Google Analytics on their own, but you can also do something pretty cool where you create hidden fields inside your forms on your website. So it could, in this instance, it's a Marketo form. It could be HubSpot, Pardot, you get it. And you basically pull through a little magical script, that data, and feed it through your form fill. And then you can, in fact, stamp it in Salesforce and forever have the association of that UTM, how it affected form fills in Salesforce for all of your reporting. For what it's worth, Todd at Sponge built a little Salesforce package that does exactly this. And you can grab it from our website and deploy it into your sandbox and then your instance and try it out. The beauty of once it's finally in Salesforce, though, is you can get this kind of reporting where your CEO, where your CMO are in every day looking at performance within Salesforce. And so here we're able to see the effect by campaign source type in this example, that there's events and then the individual campaign sources. And we're able to see campaign influence or campaign sourcing, depending on your preference. But sad trombone, the reality usually is this, where there is literally no data. Organic, Google Analytics is always going to get right. It knows itself. Referrals, also pretty easy for them to get. But none or direct means you're not doing your job and you're missing out on all of that attribution data. And it's kind of tragic. The thing, though, is that we've been doing consulting for a long time, and we have not met a company that's doing this properly. Either it's incorrect or it's inconsistent, and both are really problematic. There's a lot of reasons why that I think are very understandable. First of all, the person scheduling the social post, the person QAing the email, this is usually the most junior member of the team, and they haven't been taught how important UTMs are and how it can unlock attribution reporting. Typos are also super easy. The syntax here of UTMing is complicated and not intuitive. And it's also case sensitive. If you add a space, if you add a dash, if you write LinkedIn capital L, capital I, and then another time capital L, lowercase I, those are going to get counted as two different sources. So it's really easy to be inconsistent. I will say too, I was a naive manager when I was in-house and I did not understand the value of UTMs or the workload that somebody needed to spend a really conscientious 4 minutes for every single effort, every single social post across Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They all have to have a unique UTM. And so I was undervaluing the level of work that went into it to ensure it was done correctly and consistently. And then when you don't have attribution data, we're all in Excel hell trying to fake it till we make it, desperately trying to get end of month, end of year, end of quarter reporting, and we don't actually stop and fix the problem. We are just spiraling and trying to make the numbers up in a, defendable way within Excel. So how to use them correctly? The first thing you have to do is define each UTM parameter for your org. I could not tell you what a source is as a whole. It's about your marketing mix, how you guys look at reporting, and how you actually interpret things like medium versus source versus campaign. I'm going to show you how to do this for what it's worth. And then secondly, adopt and share a UTM builder. I'm talking every single person in your marketing function that posts to social, that creates links in PDF content, who is creating PPC ads, who is sending email, any of your vendors who are doing any of these other ancillary things. They all need to be in the same builder together in a share drive, for example, so that you're able to see how UTMs are being adopted and you can course correct if somebody miscreates a code. When I talk about defining UTMs for yourself, usually we would say the Google Analytics channel or medium, they're synonymous, is about how did we actually drive visitors to the page? Did they come via email, social, an event? This is a really big bucket. And we definitely recommend actually locking these down inside the builder because there's not a ton of flexibility. Like paid is paid, social is social. You may want to delineate though between paid social and organic social. Similarly, you may want to delineate between a sponsored event like a trade show or a hosted event like a workshop you have at HQ. So again, you want to find your marketing mix and customize these definitions accordingly. When we get into the Google Analytics source, I often think of this as like the brand name or the proper noun. So what is the specific source? Is it HubSpot? Is it Drift? Is it LinkedIn, Facebook? So something might be social or organic social, and then its source would be LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. Again, whatever your marketing mix is. The last one is the GA campaign. This is how you can define it however you want. This one's extremely loosey-goosey. We tend to do these based on overarching themes. So if you have a specific industry or vertical content topic, etc., this is different from the campaign reporting you do with campaign members in Salesforce. So this is really about what marketing metrics are you craving? And I would say as a demand gen marketer, I'm usually craving the holistic marketing concept, campaign, etc., performance at the highest level. So that's typically what we use that for. And then, like I mentioned, adopt and share that UTM builder. You can do this online, but again, I do not recommend it. You want a classic spreadsheet. You want to see the codes and be able to actually see who is creating them. Are they creating them correctly? You can see, auto prefill where you type in LinkedIn and it automatically shows you how somebody spelled it previously. So you have that consistency. You're never duplicating a code. And it is also so much easier to onboard a new team member and say, not just like, here you go, here's the spreadsheet, but again, let's walk through the definitions. Let's walk through why it's so important. And here you can see the history in place. So you're not starting from scratch. Okay, I'm going to pop out of screen share now and show you our UTM builder. So this is the one that Sponge creates. You'll see here there's a tab for instructions. So we already off the jump are establishing how to use it and what the definitions are. So here you can see, because we're following our own advice, that this is where traffic comes from. We have the medium, which is the type, that big block. Then we have the campaign. There are additional parameters inherently with Google. They're called content and term. We usually only use those for PPC. So those are kind of extra credit. If you're not needing to track that granularly, don't bother. Then there's the UTM Builder itself. It's really simple to use. Here you would create your notes. I like to do the person who wrote it. I often create this column for what it's worth. So here I am, I'm Shelby. Today is 9/19/23. My campaign source, remember that's the brand name, I'm going to say is, let's imagine a scenario. I'm posting this webinar on my LinkedIn. So it's going to be from LinkedIn. I'm going to call this UTM workshop, no spaces, all lowercase if you can. And the medium is going to be social. And here you can see there's actually a drop down in place. And I have done some data validation inside the spreadsheet to lock these down. We work with a lot of clients who prefer actually to scope out all of their available sources. If they're only running 6 campaigns for the whole year, they'll lock those down as well. No variation, no room for interpretation. And then I'm going to put my URL. In this case, I'm just going to say it's sponge.io. And then over here in this column, it's been generated. And this is what I use to go off and actually post in LinkedIn and promote this webinar recording, for example. So that's how you use the builder. Okay, great. Lastly, just a couple tips on how to actually use UTMs consistently. You really need to adopt team-wide, all vendor-wide, a mentality that UTMs go everywhere. The only time you don't use a UTM is when you're linking from your website to your website, for example. Google already knows where you are. It's not about how you got there. So emails, social posts, on all your paid advertisements. A really fun thing to do is to put it on like a booth back wall, on a piece of collateral, on a direct mail piece. And you just hide those ugly URLs with a vanity URL that redirects to the full UTM. The contact us button on Facebook, your landing pages that have your logo in the corner, like that's a HubSpot landing page. We should UTM it. Basically every time, everywhere. Again, if I'm on sponge.io, linking to sponge.io, no need. But that's the only exception, honestly. And so we know the theory. Now it's all about making it actually happen. These are our tips for actually implementing it within a team, is to define whose job is it actually. Are they able to create the vanity URLs that they need? Who from the team is going to do a quick brainstorm and audit and click around and see if we're actually using UTMs? For most folks, they're kind of partially in place, but the contact button on LinkedIn is not UTM'd, for example. Go through your forms. If you have global forms, this is a cinch. Do you have hidden UTM fields adopted? Again, we just need to like ingest this attribution data. And then who will work with, as I mentioned here, Shelby, but you do you, to actually define and customize that UTM template, do the data validation and lock it down, those different variables. Who is distributing this UTM template? Like, where does it live in the shared drive? Are the permissions like as open as they need to be? Do people need to log in behind a VPN to access it? That means none of your vendors will ever do it. And then probably the most fun is to do a brainstorm with the team. Where would we want to UTM? What are some interesting opportunities? And that time to be accountable. When will we actually do it? So that's all things UTMs. I hope you learned a thing or two. Visit sponge.io. We have a huge attribution section on our blog full of how to take these UTMs and tutorials for embedding those hidden fields in your Marketo forms, extending them into Salesforce, and then creating those reports that I showed you earlier. Thanks.